In the Grand Kingdom of Mwisho, King Kaimusi ruled with an iron fist. His word was law, and anyone who questioned him was banished, imprisoned, or worse. He imposed heavy taxes, forcing the poor to give up their last grains of food while the nobles feasted in golden palaces. His soldiers patrolled the streets, ensuring no one spoke against him. But what made him truly feared was his lack of mercy. Once, a wise old woman approached him and advised, "A great king is one who listens to the cries of his people." Kaimusi laughed and ordered, "Let her be thrown into the wilderness to see if the wind listens to her instead." People whispered that the kingdom was cursed under his rule, but none dared to speak aloud. One day, a ragged old beggar named Moto appeared at the palace gates. Unlike others, he did not beg for food or money. He demanded to speak with the king. Amused, King Kaimusi allowed him in. "I have come to test you, your majesty," Moto declared. "If you fail my test, you must step down. But if you succeed, you may do with me as you please." The king, proud as ever, smirked. "Let us begin." Moto placed 3 golden cups before the king. Under one cup lies a treasure, another hides poison, and the third holds nothing. Choose wisely. Kaimusi, trusting his instincts, lifted a cup. It was empty. Moto chuckled. "First test. Failed. Let's continue." Next, Moto placed 3 wooden boxes on the table. One box holds the key to wisdom, one holds a curse, and the last holds nothing. The king chose the box on the right and opened it. Inside was a mirror. "A mirror?" the king scoffed. Moto smiled. "The key to wisdom is to see yourself as you truly are. But you still do not understand." The court whispered. The king clenched his fists. Moto asked, "A father and son were in a terrible accident. The father died instantly, but when the son was rushed to the hospital, the doctor said, 'I cannot operate on him. He is my son. How is this possible?' The king hesitated. "Impossible," he shouted. Moto sighed. "The doctor is the boy's mother." Gasps filled the room. The king had failed all 3 challenges. Suddenly, the doors of the palace burst open, and a woman dressed in royal robes entered. The court froze. "Queen Amani!" someone gasped. The king's face paled. "Impossible! My sister vanished years ago." Queen Amani smiled. "I did not vanish. I was taken in by a wise man, the same one standing before you now." Moto removed his ragged cloak, revealing the robes of Baraka, their father's former royal advisor. "I was sent away because your pride blinded you, Kaimusi," Baraka said. "Now, it is time to correct that mistake." The court waited in silence. Would King Kaimusi fight for his throne, or would he finally learn his lesson? He took a deep breath and, for the first time in his life, bowed his head. "I step down," Kaimusi declared. "Let Amani rule for a year. I will walk among my people and learn what it means to be a true king." Queen Amani nodded. "Go, my brother, and return only when you have found wisdom." The court erupted in cheers. The kingdom had hope once again. For a year, Kaimusi traveled his kingdom as a commoner. He saw mothers crying as they gave up their food for their children. He watched old men toil in the fields, only to have their earnings taken by greedy tax collectors. He listened as people spoke of their suffering under his rule. Slowly, he changed. He helped farmers in the fields, healed the sick, and even apologized to the families he had wronged. He learned that power is not about fear, but about service. After a year, Kaimusi returned to the palace. But this time, he did not demand his throne. He knelt before Queen Amani. "If the people still want me, I will serve," he said. "But if they have found a better ruler in you, I will not take back my crown." Queen Amani smiled. "You have changed, my brother, and that is why you are ready." She handed him back the crown, but this time, he wore it differently. No longer was Kaimusi feared, he was respected and loved. He lowered taxes, built schools, and ensured no one went hungry. His people no longer whispered in fear, they sang his praises. The kingdom of Mwisho was no longer cursed, it was blessed. As for Baraka, he left the palace at dawn, his wooden staff tapping against the ground. Kaimusi rushed to stop him. "Where are you going, wise one?" Baraka smiled. "My work here is done. A teacher does not stay in one place. There are still many lost kings who must find their way." With that, he disappeared into the rising sun, a legend never seen again. For 5 years, King Kaimusi ruled wisely. The people flourished, trade grew, and no one went to bed hungry. But peace has a way of making men forget. One night, an old enemy returned. A hooded figure entered the royal chambers, silent as the wind. The guards lay unconscious at the door. Someone had let him in. King Kaimusi, sensing something, awoke. Before him stood a man he never expected to see again. "Kali," Kaimusi whispered. Kali, his cousin, had once fought alongside him, until he betrayed the kingdom and was banished. Kali grinned. "You sit on my throne, cousin." Kaimusi's eyes narrowed. "This throne belongs to no man, it belongs to the people." Kali chuckled. "Then let us see whom the people will choose, when they realize the king they love is a fraud." Kaimusi barely had time to react before Kali vanished into the night. In the coming weeks, whispers spread across the kingdom. Kaimusi was never the true heir. He stole the throne from his cousin. He is a weak king, his own blood seeks justice. Even the loyal nobles began to doubt. The kingdom that once sang his name now whispered in fear. Then came the worst betrayal. One night, Queen Amani entered Kaimusi's chambers, her face pale. "Kaimusi, the council has voted." She took a shaky breath. "You must step down." Kaimusi felt the ground rip from under him. His own sister. "You voted against me?" His voice was barely a whisper. Amani could not meet his eyes. The next day, Kaimusi left the palace. His people did not cheer nor cry. They simply watched, unsure if they had made the right choice. As he walked through the forests, he whispered, "Baraka, where are you?" Kaimusi wandered for days, searching for the one man who could help him. Finally, he found a hut deep in the jungle. Inside sat an old man, eyes closed. Kaimusi knelt. "Baraka, I am lost." The old man opened his eyes and smiled. "Then it is time for your final test, my son." Kaimusi straightened. "What must I do?" Baraka lifted a tiny wooden box. "Take this to the palace gates," he said. "Do not open it. Do not fight. Simply wait." Kaimusi hesitated. "A box. That's it." But he obeyed. For 3 nights, he sat outside the palace, holding the box. Watching. Waiting. The people gathered, whispering. On the 4th night, the palace doors swung open. And there stood Queen Amani. Tears streamed down her face. "Brother, we were deceived." Behind her, the people stood, their eyes full of regret. "Kali is no king," Amani said. "He has enslaved the villages, doubled the taxes. We need you." Kaimusi looked at the box in his hands. He turned to Baraka. "Now, my son," the old man whispered. "Open it." Kaimusi slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a single white feather. The people gasped. Amani fell to her knees. "The feather of the ancestors," she whispered. "The true ruler carries the weight of the kingdom, yet must remain as light as a feather." Kaimusi marched through the palace gates, not with an army, but with his people. Kali laughed when he saw him. "You think the people can fight me?" But before he could react, the guards turned against him. They had seen the truth. "You are no king, Kali." One by one, they dropped their weapons. Realizing he had lost, Kali tried to flee, but he was captured. Instead of executing Kali, Kaimusi made a shocking decision. Banishment did not change you, but maybe service will. He ordered Kali to live among the poorest people in the kingdom for 10 years. "Only then will you understand what it means to lead," Kaimusi declared. With the kingdom restored, Baraka once again prepared to leave. Kaimusi stopped him. "Will I ever see you again?" The old man chuckled. "Maybe. Maybe not. But my lessons will live in your heart forever." And just like before, he walked into the rising sun, never seen again. As King Kaimusi reclaimed his throne, he realized that true leadership is not about power, but about wisdom, justice, and the trust of the people. He had lost everything, yet he regained it not through war, but through patience, understanding, and the strength of truth. The moral lesson of this story is that a leader's greatest weapon is not the sword, but the heart that beats for his people. Betrayal and deception may shake the throne, but only righteousness can truly hold it. And so, the kingdom of Kaimusi flourished once more, not because of his crown, but because of the wisdom that guided it. Please, if you enjoyed this story, kindly subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell for such interesting stories.